we're 5 minutes late. We had a little bit of technical difficulties over here with the Munich fellas over on the far side. But we're live and we're happy to be talking about men's fashion and how it connects with modernism. That's kind of a side part of it, but we want to talk about the importance of it. When we talk about fashion, especially as Catholics, traditional Catholics, we seem to mostly get stuck on women's fashion and most importantly, women's modesty, which don't get us wrong. Of course, it's important, but it's not the only thing. It's not the only thing that matters about the entire fashion spectrum when it comes to Catholics and how we dress. And so we want to talk to these three guys about the importance of how we dress and the importance of how we present ourselves in church for Christmas, but also every day to the public. How do we present ourselves? How do we dress? And how do we, yeah, show ourselves as traditional Catholics to those who see us? And I think that it sounds like a bit of a shallow topic, but it truly isn't. And I think that you're going to be surprised at how deep it goes and how important it is as we go along. So I want to welcome first time guests, all three of these guys. In the middle, at least from what I see, is Johnny. Johnny coming in. He's from South Middle Germany. Paolo, he's the Italian looking guy over there. He's from Italy, from near Venice, and then Christian, all the way over on the far side, is from Stuttgart, which is we won't talk about. It's kind of a dirty, nasty place over in southwestern Germany. So, Johnny, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Paolo, thank you as well. And Christian, you as well. And I think that we're all going to have slightly differing opinions on this. We're just going to have a chat about it. I know that as you see, the two dapper guys on the far side, Paolo and Christian, are dressed much more old-fashioned, but also very highly dressed. And Johnny and I are not quite so high.
Formal. The word is
formal. Yeah, it's it is more formal, even though they are privately in the apartment. But that's something we want to talk about. I think
it's called outdated.
Outdated, and see, this is the conversation we're going to have. Johnny would call it outdated, and these other two would call it what we should be doing, right? And I think that it's a really interesting topic and a really good one. And I think that I would actually like to start with. I think we're going to start with Christian. And Christian, I want you to start with telling me what brought you to the point of dressing as you dress now? You didn't always dress like this. I've seen pictures of you 10 years ago with your long hippie boy hair and wearing a hoodie. So what changed? What made you make that change?
Yeah, thanks. It's when I was younger, for sure. Now I'm 26 years old, but when I was, for example, like 17, 18, 19 or something, I was very different dressed. I had hoodies and jeans and jogging pants and something like that. So clothes or fashion was not something very important for me. And also, like, the main thing for me was comfortable. It has to be comfortable and doesn't matter, but then 1 year, so in 2014, I start living in Father Heine's house, and more or less 1 year later, so in the autumn of 2015, I start to I don't know exactly what was the point when the point I really start to think about, but in this time area I started to think about fashion and what fashion mean, what clothes mean, what we want to show other people when we walk through the streets or just living in the work, in the school, in the university, something like that. What we want to symbolize or show with our clothes, with what we wear every day. And I also start to recognize, because I read a lot of things about and something, and I start to recognize that it's that we as Catholics look very similar to non-Catholic people, to modern people. And for myself, I started to say to myself, there is something wrong, because we should look different because we are different, because we are traditionalists, we are Catholics, and something like that. And then I started to think to myself, okay, how can I show that I'm conservative, that I'm right, and that I'm not like, you know, like these left wings libertarian stuff. Yeah. And then I decided to wear dress shirts and vests, and 1 or 2 years later, also ties and jackets. And so it's more like a process. I'm still working at it now for 6 years or something. But yeah, that was my.
And so your belief system brought you to your fashion system, or how you dress.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And Johnny, I'd ask you next. I mean, is that the same for you? Because I know, as we see with you, you don't dress as old-fashioned or as formally, whatever you want to call it. But I know that you also take it very seriously. Is that the same for you? Did you always have that idea of you need to dress well, or is that something new?
No, it also developed. I don't know exactly at what age, but for me, the most important thing now is that everybody has to find their own style. Like it takes some years, and you just figure out different things, and then you find your style. And then when you found your style, you try to perfect it. I mean, doesn't matter what kind of style, it just has to be authentic. It has to be you. Don't copy anything, and be authentic.
But
And
what if someone's style is not a good style? I mean, what if they have bad taste?
Yeah, that could also be. I mean, and I wouldn't judge those people. I would just try to, let's say, convince people that they at least think about it. How am I coming across? How do I look in the world? How do people look at me? But still, don't try to fake anything or try to copy anybody else, because that's just not authentic. So you should find your own style, of course, in moderate limits, or at least in within the borders of modesty. But within that, I think you're free to choose your style as long as it's just you.
And see, that's a really interesting approach, and I think that's something that we will say that is more of a modern approach, if we take that as good or bad, I suppose, because it's the idea of objective versus subjective beauty, right? And what is actually nice, what is actually fitting, and as you would say, it would be more of a subjective idea, that what makes you comfortable and what you're wearing is what you should do. And that is, I totally understand that idea, that is more the modern idea of what you feel comfortable in is what you should wear. Now, I think, Paulo, I'm going to go with you now. First of all, you're more in the public eye than most of us, than any of us. You're up there, giving concerts and stuff. So in the public eye, you're much more formal. Paulo is can I say world renowned, a regionally renowned violinist. Let's say that, at least. And so he is much in the public eye, at least with his suit coats and probably tuxes and stuff. But I think that also changed recently for you too, that you started more recently
Yes.
in your normal time dressing formally.
Yes, because I slowly, or not so slowly, understood that if we need an order in faith, so if we need to believe with within very strict rules, we also need to live in a defined system, as it just always was in the history, till a certain moment, very specific moment, which is not one single day, but which is, we could say, more or less the development of the last century, because last century was the century of the destruction of a world that for many centuries, for not centuries, but 2000 of years, or let's say since always, had worked always in the same way. And unfortunately, last century was really the century of the big destruction of.
But do you mean in terms of tradition or in terms of fashion? Because fashion has been very different. Obviously, I mean every 100 years or so, it's very different. I mean, look at the 300 years ago. You had the French dressing, the men dressed like women practically, right, in tight pants and big hats, and I think that we would probably all agree that that's a little bit too much. And so,
no,
why would we stick with what you guys are wearing now? I guess maybe I'll ask Christian that. Christian, why do we go back to what you're wearing? What, the 3-piece suit or the vest?
It's a different concept of the world. The world has always functioned in the same way. I mean, we were speaking about, let's say, the Christian culture, and especially Europe and the Western world. And in the sense that mode, as many other things, like, for example, music and like arts in general, always changed and always developed in different styles, in different tastes, but always based on the same principles. This is the fundamental concept. So the difference of what we experience nowadays in this totally revolutionary world is that there are no more bases and no more principles. So there is a changement, but it's not just a changement based on the same principles. It's like, and that's what happened with the church too. The church was has always been in a process of changing, adding, but the faith, the doctrine, could be never been changed. And the same is for the other things, for the, let's say, profane things. So music always changed in, let's say, in the last centuries, in the, let's say, till the Romanticism, which is the last, let's say, the last very classical music, changed in different styles, but on a base of certain table fix and always same rules.
And so when you say that, and so what has changed in your mind in terms of our attire, what we wear? How has that changed so drastically in 100 years that it didn't, 100, from the 1800s to the 1900s, for example? What in your mind is so different?
Well, that's the so-called word revolution. And this word revolution doesn't affect only the Catholic Church in terms of faith, but involves the entire world in all fields of our lives. So the fact is, this revolution that we can see and that it's in front of our eyes, it's a revolution in the church, a revolution in the architecture, a revolution in the arts. And so it's a revolution that absolutely involves every aspect of our lives, in public life, even private life. And that has been possible, also, of course, because of the big use and the big mean of the technology that in the past was not absolutely possible, because of the absence of the means, the technological means that now can be used, of course, in a good way, and at the same time can be a mean of total corruption of every kind of
and I think, I mean, we all agree with you, but let's give it to Christian, because I want Christian to answer, because I totally agree with you, Paulo. I think you're right, and I think that we do see a modernism of every form of our lives, and St. Pius X warned us of that in everything, and I totally agree with you. And I think we all would agree with that. So, but Christian, tell me, I mean, why do you think, what exactly has happened? How have we literally modernized in forms of what we wear?
Yeah. So you talked about that. For example, the fashion changed over the centuries, or over the last 2,000 years. Yeah, let's let's play in this time. And that's completely right. So, for example, the people in ancient times, they wear tunicas or something, or the people in Middle Age times, they were completely different. There were completely different clothes than, for example, in the 18th or 19th century. It's true, but first of it, that the change of clothes were not so fast than we see it or saw it in the 20th century, especially in the second half of 20th century for the whole world, because that what we call the suit for man, so the normal suit is basically exists basically since the end of the 17th century. So for more than 300 years. And sure, there were some variations and some differences, and it looks different, but the basic parts of the suit was everything the same. And also we have to know that in every epoch we have different clothes, for sure, but they have the same point, that they want to be formal. They want to say to the world, or say also to the people who wear this fashion, or want that the people who wear this fashion, that they can that they think about, or then that they can live this formal life, what also the Catholic faith or the Catholic Church always preach. Yeah, so there is a big connection between. Yeah, but then since the 1960s, or in the second half of the 20th century, we have now the problem, or the very big difference, that the clothes or the fashion didn't want to be formal anymore. They want to be comfortable, or individual, or or radical,
provocative.
Yeah, right. Thank you. And so that's the big difference. And so we have to, that's one of my central ideas, in my opinion, about that we have to know, and we have to make it clear in our heads, that that's one of the main points. And we don't want to, and for example, every one of the viewers now completely agree, for sure, with the point that we don't want to be modernists, that we don't want to have modern thinkings and faith and everything. But the fashion is part of our life, and so we should also try to don't compromise, or to don't wear these fashion styles after this revolution point.
Can I
And Johnny, wait, I think this is a good time to go to Johnny, because I think this is just exactly where we need to bring Johnny in, because I think, Johnny, you brought up the word provocative. I think that's a perfect word. And so, since you say that, I mean, what is your, I don't want to say argument, but what are your thoughts on it? Why do you think it's okay to not have to stay back in the past?
I think that the big problem was that those people, when they just revolutionized fashion, they wanted to be provocative. They wanted to get rid of all the old stuff, all of it. They wanted to revolutionize. And I think with that mindset, I think the mindset is the problem, not the fashion per se. I mean, it's not really it's not really objectionable to wear, for example, a leather jacket and jeans per se. What is kind of the problem with this revolution, is that people wanted to be provocative, and I think that's what you have to avoid. You should have your own style and be comfortable with it also, but also try to perfect it. Like you have to work on yourself and just make sure that everything fits together, that you pick the right size, for example, that it fits you, your body type. I mean, there are many things to consider, that you just look right, or that people don't run away screaming when they see you, right? I mean, you want to also please people, not be provocative, not revolutionize, but still have your own style.
But you would agree that fashion, like art and like music and like most of the things that we have in this world, fashion is there is something that is objectively beautiful, right? That is better looking. And I guess I would ask you, Johnny, I mean, do you think personally, I mean, do you think that a t-shirt and jeans can objectively be as beautiful, or not beautiful, as attractive or as good looking or whatever as a three-piece suit?
Depends on the
Just in
guy.
terms of how it looks. What?
It depends on the guy, right?
The guy or the
Well-
fit? I mean,
Well, I wouldn't call it more or less attractive, or I would call it more or less formal and appropriate to the occasion. Because I think
and so
attractive,
go
like
ahead.
attractive people are attractive, and they can enhance their attractiveness with their clothing for sure. And dressing nicely is always a good choice there. But I wouldn't call a t-shirt or any dress really attractive, just fitting.
Okay. And so first of all, before I want to have Paulo answer that, but before I bring Paulo, and I have to say thanks to Father Borja for chatting over on YouTube. I really appreciate it. We know that no matter how many live viewers we have, we tend to always have a priest or two, which is pretty fantastic, and shows that we must be doing something right. So Father Borja, thanks so much for joining in. If anyone watching this wants to comment, leave a remark, has a question, I think this is a really interesting topic, so please leave it on YouTube or Facebook, and we'll try to answer it as we go. It's really, I think, a fascinating topic, and we would love to have your opinions on it as well. And Paulo, I guess I would ask you then, I mean, if what makes, how do I ask this? What makes the style you're dressing in objectively better, in your opinion?
So there is a very important principle that, and you mentioned it, the principle of objectiveness of what is good and what is bad. So if we start to say that there is no objectiveness of beauty, then we are immediately going in the direction of relativism, which is of course against the tradition of the church and in general against the common sense, because in life there is objective beauty and objective good. As there is objective good, there is objective beauty. How is it possible to recognize objective beauty? We recognize objective beauty basing ourselves on some principles. For example, in music, the principles of that make music, true music and beautiful music is basically the principle of harmony and tonalism. So what happened with music in the last century? This principle of harmony and tonalism, which means the fact that the music has to be harmonic in the sense of well sounding. Now to let's speak very easy. And in the last century there was the big revolution of classical music, especially in the beginning of the century, already end of 20th century, 19th century, but more on in the beginning of the last century. And so classical music got destroyed because those new composers like Schoenberg, and we know all this Alban Berg and the Vienna school, the Viennese school started to say, okay, we don't like anymore beautiful music. We want to make ugly music because it's innovative. So this is actually the spirit of the last century and the spirit of the revolution. We just make something that is ugly and not anymore beautiful because we just have enough of the traditional world and the beauty of the traditional world. That's mainly the only thought that that is behind, let's say, this revolution of arts, and not only arts. And in
And
this
I
sense,
think, and
yeah,
I have to add on to it because what you say, I think, is really true. And I think that as you say, a lot of it happened. The music, we did a podcast on that with a guy from Australia, which I really loved the podcast I did with Matthew. So go check that out. That's on YouTube. The devolution of music, which is really fascinating. I'd love to talk with Paolo about that in the future. Again,
yeah,
we're going to have a podcast on our own.
yeah,
It's really amazingly fascinating as you see modernism creep into society through art, and it really has, and I think also through fashion. And I think you can see that. We all know some of it. Some of it we can all see ourselves. We can see. I was at a lake last summer, I think, sometime having a coffee with my wife and daughter, and I was just watching people watching, people walking by, and there were two friends who walked by, two girls, teenage girls, I don't know, and one of them had a ankle length dress, that had modest sleeves, etc., and her friend had short shorts, really really immodest short shorts, and just didn't, and taking out the modesty of it, just literally the fashion of it, the objective beauty was immediate. My brain immediately told me that is more attractive. Now, one may be more sexual, of course, but the other one is more attractive. And I think that's really interesting, that I think that women especially, and men too, they fall into the trap of thinking that sexuality is the same thing as attractiveness or
yeah,
looking good. And I have to add that Father Borja mentioned in the comments, he said he would add, our clothing can and should honor God, reflect our dignity, and convey respect
sure,
and charity to others. I think that's a great
sure.
comment. And that is how we should feel. And I think
Yeah,
that, of course, again, Johnny is not against any of this.
that is,
Obviously, again, this is
I,
a much
yes,
lower form of what we're talking about. That's about
that
modesty and stuff.
that is
Mhm.
absolutely the point what Father Borja said. So the clothes had a function in the history, let's say in the ancien regime. So, but not only, let's say till even till last century, half of last century, the function of um, make human beings be um, beautiful in the society and in front of God's eyes, and this same principle can be applied to, let's say, everything. So it's absolutely a fact of of objectiveness that there has been and there is a huge decadence in all fields, because we don't see any more beautiful architecture. Okay, modern architecture, but what is modern architecture? Sometimes some skyscrapers that, yeah, they are not as beautiful as a Baroque church. In music, in clothes, this is a decadence also, because we just say, okay, we don't need more anymore to just always look beautiful. Eventually, sometimes, if there is a good occasion, and this is the difference with the past, that every day was an important day in this sense, even for low classes, like even farmers, or had a dignity in their clothes, in their way of speaking, in the so we also there is also decadence, let's say, in this sense, in the way of speaking, in the way of like approaching to other people. And then the last thing that I want to say, that it's not a coincidence that these big changement and revolutions does coincide with the most important moments of last century. Let's say, first of all, 68, which was the sexual revolution and the revolution of clothes also. And regarding women, which is a bigger revolution that what concerns men, it's absolutely connected to feminism. So to this revolution, to the true figure of women, of the woman, and so to this new, it's also we can just put this into the concept of égalité. So we don't want to be any more women. We want to be same as men. We want to do the same things. So we just put pants, because we don't need to put any more our skirts. And so yes, and another fundamental principle is the differentiation of men and women. And in fact, nowadays we have this unisex mode, which is absolutely, it's not just a coincidence. It's the fact of make women and men look the same, and even worse, that men look like women and that women look like men. So it's the absolute perversion of the
And
society.
John, and I'd like Johnny to respond to that. Johnny, what would you say? I mean, I think you would probably agree with almost all of this. So what would you say is the difference in how you view things? I mean, I think you would say that you can still dress modernly, but still obviously be modest and still be feminine and masculine.
Yeah, exactly. Like the point with feminism, I think the problem, as I said, is the mindset. So when those revolutions started, women tried to be exactly like men, and that was the mindset that they were trying to push. So they used fashion as a means to be provocative again and say we are exactly like men. We can be exactly like men. But I think we can say objectively that wearing pants is always a manly thing, and wearing a dress is always like for women. Because in the ancient Roman times and Greek times, it was just the other way around. Like men wear dresses in a sense, and pants were considered only for barbarians. So it's not like you can say the clothes for themselves are, you can't say objectively those are clothes for men or for women. It comes down to the mindset and why something is introduced and why somebody is wearing it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you are right, and I think that comes to be the ultimate question, right? Is that the modern fashions have changed. That they always change. Fashion always changes, and so we have to. And the church teaches that. The church teaches you need to always be modest, of course, but you need to dress according to the fashion of the times. And the church doesn't go and tell you you must wear a toga.
Yeah, yeah, right.
The church says you must be modest and you must dress according to the fashion of the times. And so that's a really interesting question. So I think that the Christians and Paulo's argument would be that what they are wearing is still enough in the fashion of the times that should be what we strive to wear, because it is the height of the fashion of our times rather than the what is common for our times. And I think, Johnny, your argument would be more that you need to be a little bit more modern and a little bit more with the times in order to literally fit with the fashion of the day.
Yeah, like be in the world and not of the world, right? Like try to go with the fashion as long as it's modesty, within the borders of modesty, like I said. And I wanted to add something to the pants discussion. I think that we are now at a point that most women, I would say, they don't want to be provocative by wearing pants, but they want to have practical clothing. I mean, it mostly comes down to that. So I think the mindset has gone, and so I wouldn't say that it's objectionable anymore.
Yeah, obviously, it depends on the pants. Go ahead, Christian. I think
Yeah,
it
right.
depends on.
As I
Again,
said,
I mean, and I think we need to make sure that we stress. We all stress that modesty is the first key. That
exactly.
we all agree on that.
Yes,
So
but
so let's
nowadays,
keep
modesty.
let's keep modesty out of it, because I think you can have modest pants for women. I mean, I know women who wear pants. So
Yes.
so let's keep modesty out of it, and let's really keep it to the fashion of it, because I think that's really important. So Christian, I don't know if you had something to add.
Yeah. So modesty, sure, but fashion should be more than just be modest or just be covered our nakedness, to be clear. Yeah. Fashion, in my opinion, fashion also, like former times also said that fashion has the central was das goal that we should that fashion should shows the beauty of the human being, because it's created by God. Yeah. And so we should act, for sure. We should act, we should live, and we should wear clothes in this mindset. And a good help for me is always to ask myself, okay, when I um, get up at the early morning and dressed up in something, I always want to be dressed up like that. I can in every moment I can go into a church for praying the rosary or something, so that in every moment of when I'm outside my flat, I can act like a Catholic person. And I also want that the people around me in this modern anti-Catholic time, that they see just I see, and I have to say nothing, just to see. And I got lots of these reactions, for example, in university or something, that they can see that I'm not a modern guy, that I'm not like a libertarian guy and not a left guy and something like that, and that I'm different, and that I'm that I like, that I have a different mindset, a traditional mindset. And it is very easy to say this to the others around you just with your clothes when you wear the right one. And another thing what I want to have to say is we talked about, for example, about the point that in 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, the progressive people in our society, in the world, started to use fashion as a as a as a thing to transport their new ideas into the society. Yeah. So like with the sexual revolution, something. Yeah. And all of that. And we should do the same. We should very offensively use fashion as a weapon. Yeah. As a weapon to show the people around us that we are different, and that is still important. It's still possible to live a traditional life in these times.
Yeah, and I think it's well said, and I think that we all, as Catholic men, traditional Catholic men, we need to be the leaders of our families, of our communities, of our parishes, of the world. We are the light of the world. That's what Christ wants us to be, and I think that that's very true. And I think that, as you say, what we wear does represent that. Our first reaction when we walk into a church or even a grocery store, say, is you see the people, right? And you instinctively see what people are doing, what they're wearing, what they're saying, how they talk, and all these different things. And these things actually matter. And I think that that's something that modernism in our modern world has tried to teach us, that it doesn't matter, that what we want is what matters, what we feel is what matters, and that other people, what they want and what they care about, actually doesn't matter. And that I think that's actually wrong. And we should care about what people think. Now, not overly, not overly. We can't be obsessed with it. We can't go and spend 2 hours styling our hair or whatever. I mean, you have to keep it in moderation. But what people think about us does matter, because what we portray to the world is in a way who we are in many ways, and that does matter. And I think, again, Johnny, we've had this conversation in private before too, and I think that you would agree. But why? What would be your argument for not setting your bar, let's say, where Paulo and Christian have it, with literally what they wear? What's the argument against that?
My argument against it is that I would be faking something that I am not. Like I said, you should try to perfect your own style, and try to look nicely. But I wouldn't, for myself, consider it my style to wear a suit every day. It's just not my style. And if I did it, I would fake somebody else and wouldn't be authentic anymore.
And I really do understand that point, but I think it's got flaws because what if now, I like you, Johnny, I've seen you plenty of times, and I think you dress nicely. You don't dress in potato sacks and stuff.
And I mean,
but what if
I
someone
like to
does?
dress
What if
nicely,
someone's
don't get
what
me
if
wrong,
someone's
yeah.
style? What if someone's style is to dress in potato sacks? You know what if it's to wear shorts and a t-shirt all the time, and that's their style? So that's the
Yeah.
issue. That if you start saying it's okay for everyone
Yeah,
to have their
I
own
get you, yeah.
subjective style, it's a really dangerous road.
It's relativism.
Well, I will say it's okay. It's not sinful. I mean, we talked about it.
Agreed.
We're not talking
If it's
about
modest.
modesty here. So
Right.
it's still okay. It's just like people just will look at you the way you dress, and if you dress like a child, they will look at you like a child, right? So that's your responsibility to behave in a way that represents you as a man, and you want to come across as a man and not as a kid. But still, I think it is not necessary to wear a suit nowadays to come across as a man and not as a kid. I mean, it used to be different. Men used to wear suits all the time, but nowadays nobody thinks that, oh, this childish kid here is wearing jeans. I mean, jeans have become really pants for every day, not just for work. And so as times change and people react differently to you, I think it's not necessary to go that far back.
Christian?
Yeah. Yeah, it's in this, it's, I agree. I understand what you say, but I would also say that we should, we have to hold it all the time in our mindset, and don't forget that we as Catholics, we don't, in general, don't agree with the idea of individualism. And what you say is more or less individualism. And for sure, in some parts, individualism is okay. And also, like in formal fashion, there is enough space to be a little bit individual. Yeah. Like, yeah, but within. And because the first thing I say is from fashion, with fashion, is that it has to transport the idea of formality, because that's the only, because formal is culture, and culture is the only different official or watchable difference between us, yes, and some like uncivilized areas or something. Yeah. And also and it's and I, yeah, and I also want to say another point, that it's like, for even especially for us Catholic men, we should not believe that just the main thing is that it in our inside, the belief that the faith in our inside is okay, is the most important thing. For sure, it's important, but we should not forget that our outside should say what in our inside is.
Exactly. Yeah. It should.
And
it should
so
fit your
our
personality.
faith, yeah, but our faith, Catholic faith, I think there is nothing in the whole history of human beings what is such formal than the Catholic faith. And so in this case, why we should not use or live this formality in our whole lives. Yeah.
And I think that, again, it becomes a question of what we deem to be formal. And I think that that's the issue that Johnny is saying. you don't need to be, your guys' formal is not his formal, which there's an argument for that. That there is. I mean, we got to remember that there is an argument for it. Now, my argument against Johnny would be if you go and watch a modern movie, and then you go and watch a movie from the 1940s and 1950s. We just watched last night, It's a Wonderful Life, which I love. And you see these men and the women, you see how they're dressed, and you see the men dressed in suit coats, and they always wear hats, and they take off their hats when they enter a building. I know mine's on inside. It's because I have a very short haircut, guys. Anyway, there is a real formality. And when you watch it, I personally, at least, am absolutely instinctively drawn to it. I love it. My heart likes it. I feel when I watch it, and then I watch a modern movie, I feel like we have lost something. Really, I mean, like I feel like something has been lost, and that our t-shirts and jeans, it is modern, and you can absolutely make an argument that it's okay because you're fitting in with society. But when you go and see how it was, and to see what we've given up, that's hard for me to swallow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always nice to see a man in a suit. I agree, and I like wearing suits and dressing nicely also. It's just a question between being formal and being practical. And I think you can step down a little bit and not be as formal every time, and then it becomes something special when you are wearing a suit, and it makes it even more special.
Yeah,
so
sure.
you kind of save it for special occasions, right?
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. But it's also like we have to know that formal is no criteria what is in the modern mindset. So I completely disagree with the idea that in modern fashion is any type of formality. It's in my eyes it's impossible, because the modernism starts in to have and has the goal since the beginning of modernism to destroy all formality.
Yeah, of course.
So you can so in my eyes you cannot say that it's possible to have formal. So it's possible to have good looking fashion or modest fashion with
Fitting
modern
fashion.
fashion.
Yeah.
No discussion about that. But the fact, but I don't think that it's possible to have formal fashion in modern fashion.
Like without wearing a suit and a tie, like that would be like your baseline of being formal, right?
It's a great question, John. That's such the point of the discussion, right? That what is the minimum that we should do, and it's a really good question, and I think that I don't think anyone is necessarily right or wrong. I don't think we can't say Johnny's wrong or we are right. I think, but I think it's a really good question, because I think if we again look at these old movies and see what they wore, if we see Christian and Paolo dressed in their home, with ties and stuff, it is more work. It is not practical. It's not practical. It's not. But does that matter? Does it matter? I mean, why do we care about practicality? Yeah. It's a really good question. I mean, that's a modern mindset, I think. I think that's true.
Of course.
Because most of us are no carpenters,
I mean, the word comfortable goes together with modern, because people don't want to be comfortable. Don't want to be told that they sin. It's more comfortable to sin.
Because, and also on the other side, we have to know that, for example, that comfortability is more or less the first step of decadence. Yeah, and when we look our modern society, it's I for sure that's the most comfortable society in history, and also the most
and the worst
decadent history inside.
So it goes absolutely together. In the moment, even in faith, in the moment you start to be comfortable in faith, to say, no, but maybe this is not a sin, maybe that's fine, then you're going in the worst, in the bad direction.
We have to try to be very strict.
Yeah, and life is not comfortable. To be Catholic is not comfortable, and to go to our Almighty God is not comfortable.
And I think we'd all agree again though that there's no intrinsically wrong thing with Johnny dressing in jeans in a shirt. I think we all agree with that. It's not like Johnny's going to hell because he's wearing jeans, right? But
No,
the question is, so
Yeah.
the question is
Maybe we have to burn him.
we need to burn it, as Paolo would say. But if we want to be the light of the world, if we want to be the leaders of society and trying to form as much as we can, the little bit that we can, shape society and culture, which it's very little, I understand that, but what we can change, I think in everything we do, we should aim higher, myself included. I dress terribly. Johnny dresses way better than I do. So this is not coming from someone who dresses well. So I dress terribly.
It's not a matter of the level of clothes and how much they cost. It's not a matter.
But that's another topic. That's a great topic
that's
too. It's true, and I think that I have been so afraid of spending too much money, and I've been afraid of the idea of overdressing. And I think that's Johnny's mindset too. And I totally understand that mindset, like 100% understand that. But I think that the way you guys are dressed, say, the formal, I think it's just on the edge of being totally acceptable in society. I think if people look at you strange when you walk down the street, it's generally in a good way. It's strange in a good way. It's not strange like whoa, what a couple of weirdos. It's a wow, they're dressed very nicely.
Do you know why that is? Because they are authentic. And I have to say, I like your style because it's just you. That's how you come across. So
in that case,
no, so we can't deny that. In life and in the society, there have to be principles. And nowadays there are no more principles. That's the fact. That's the fact. And there is a total individualism and relativism. So if we go into relativism, then we are not. Relativism is absolutely antithetic to Catholicism. Absolutely. So in this sense, if we start to be relativist and to say whatever is fine, then we lost. And that's what we can see nowadays. The society doesn't have any principles. So whatever is fine. That's a problem. And before it was not like that. There were some. The best word is probably codex. So the way of dressing and the way of speaking, for example, had some codes and some very stable, fixed principles that nowadays just don't exist anymore. They always exist because the truth always exists. It just not applied. So, we can just spend a lot of words about that, but at the end, the question is that we are in a relativist society. And and it's impossible to deny that there is a huge decadence. It's impossible to compare the beauty of the past with the beauty of now. There is sometimes there are some beautiful products of the modern society that can be, but always because they are based on the same principles that inspired what had been productive in the past. So it's not a matter of old fashion. It's a matter of always the same. It's like the church. It's semper idem. But semper idem means not that there can be changes, but there can be changes within some friendships.
And so I think eventually, pretty much, you're saying that there, because the world is always changing, we need a codex of rules in order to know what is right and wrong. That's in terms of all things. So I think, again, it's a great thing to ask Johnny then. And I think, Johnny, this is, again, you got to explain, because I think that's a real defect in that logic, that and the idea of as long as it fits you. But what if you have a bad taste?
Yeah. No, that's, I think we agree on the principle. We just don't agree on the baseline. And I would say there is a baseline. That's what I mean by dressing neatly and with your style and trying to perfect it. Like, try to perfect it. Don't be lazy and just run around like you don't care. And that's exactly what is happening when people are not trying to perfect their own style, that they are coming across as lazy, and they actually are. So there's definitely a baseline that you can't go below. Like the basic baseline would be modesty, of course. But then also you have to make sure that your clothes fit you well, that you don't that you pick your clothes consciously, that you think about how you look, that you look into the mirror, and that you come across as an adult being. And you have to make sure that you look okay.
And I think you're it's totally right, Johnny. But I think again, what are you basing that on? What's the baseline? And that's the question, right? Because if I'm looking again, I'm a perfect example. I am a terrible dresser. I'm a lazy dresser. I don't buy clothes anytime. I'm truly part of why I wanted to do this podcast was to help myself, and I truly mean that. I am a terrible dresser. I fully admit it. I'm lazy. I'm ignorant, and I'm dumb. But the question then becomes for me, truly for me, and others watching. I'm sure other guys watching. What is that baseline? If I'm looking in the mirror, I don't have taste, Johnny. I'm like a goat over here. You know,
Well,
I've got like the sense of an animal. I have no idea what looks good.
I have a tip
So
for
how do
you.
I best it?
A sister or a wife or I don't know, any relative can help with that.
Yeah. Also like kind of education, ask people who has ideas about it, or there maybe we should argue about some basics every man can do very easy, and I don't know.
And so that's a good point. So let's take out the argument of every day, because I think that's kind of the argument with Johnny of the everyday. Do you wear a tweed suit or do you wear a t-shirt and jeans? And it's a good question. It's hard to answer. I start to lean more towards wearing a tweed suit because I think we do need to set our bar higher. I think in this society we have to be the ones who are trying to lead a cultural revolution of our own, a counter revolution. I think that's true.
Yes, counter
revolution, counter reformation of culture.
Restoration.
And if we're gonna do that, I don't think we're gonna do that in a t-shirt and jeans. That's just being honest. So I think we do have to set it higher. But let's say let's take that out of it, and let's say we're dressing for Sunday mass or for Christmas. And I think Christian, will go to you first. I mean, what are some really basics for the guys listening? Well, we're only going to take a couple of minutes on the actual basics of this. What should they address then?
Basic for feasts or basic for daily life?
Let's go to Sunday mass.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. A dress shirt, a tie, a jacket, a trouser, not a jeans, a normal pants, or better, suit pants, leather shoes, and socks.
And before you go on, I do have to say that when you go to mass in the U.S., in almost every parish, they will have a code of attire, and it's pretty much what you said. They'll say a dress shirt and a tire, slacks and not jeans, and I don't know what they say about shoes, but I know sneakers and stuff. Obviously,
but like clothes are not clothes in like they are not equal. So you have also to look that, for example, they like what Johnny said. They have to fit. They have to fit because nothing looks more gross than like way too big jacket or too small trouser or something.
Common sense. I mean,
no,
that would be actually my baseline that you asked for.
And
Kevin.
also, like you have to
fit.
combine. You have to combine when you're not so fit in fashion questions, and you have to combine it. For example, colors, very conservative, not so bright colors, more darker ones. With a white dress shirt, you cannot do anything wrong. With a well-fit, nice dress shirt, you cannot do anything wrong. Dark trousers, gray trousers are they are very good. Brown leather shoes when you have to in some cases black are better, but in general let's say gray trouser and brown leather shoes, and you have to wear a belt because it also looks like creepy when you have like a, because then the point where it has to be set, you have to see that trouser and shirt has to be separated, and the belt has this function to separate these two parts of your body.
It also has another function, you know.
Yeah,
it
sure,
holds your pants up too, right?
in fashion questions, it has this so yeah. And also like the jacket has to fit, the jacket has to fit, and also the tie has to fit also, yeah. And but that's just, there are tons of YouTube videos about that, just how to what is a well-fitting jacket, for example. And there are some very good one, and just that's not it now it sounds, for somebody who never did it, it sounds like, whoo, what is well fitting, but little bit experience and it's not so, it's very easy. Yeah, it's very easy.
I think, guys, we came to the point that we need to remind us how to just normally dress.
But yeah, but I also have to say, the best thing you can wear at Sundays, for example, or for other feast days, is the suit, for sure. When you wear a suit, a well-fitting suit, then you can, then that's the optimum. Then you do nothing wrong, and then you are very formal and very.
It can't get better for Christmas, right?
Then you wear a tuxedo for Christmas, but and that's not an argument we had, but a discussion we had a couple months back about if you dress in a suit coat for daily or Sunday mass or daily mass, yeah, how do you make it nicer for Christmas? And I'd ask Christian and Paula that.
Yeah, when you decided for yourself that you want to wear a suit every day, so then for sure it has to be a different days, has to be a different between Sunday and normal days. Yeah. Yes. But suit is not equal suit. There are different type of suits. There are better, like very fine and very good one, and they are also a little more expensive. They are for Sunday for sure, but they are also it exists. Yeah, in a good fashion store, there exists a man fashion store. There exist lots and tons of different daily life suits. They are a little bit more.
Down to earth, tweed.
Yeah.
They're different. They're even different fabrics, right? They're much more. They're literally rougher, right? They're not so fine.
Right. So in this case, there are possibilities even for people who just wear suits every day to make a difference. Yeah, and or for example, under the during the week you just wear a normal suit, jacket, and suit pants, and at Sunday also a vest or something. Yeah.
And then on Christmas, a nice tie. Go ahead, Paula.
I want just to add something which I find very important. Actually, it's also wrong to say that we have to be well dressed on Sunday, and on the other days we can go to the street like whatever it is. It's because let's say God exists only on Sunday and doesn't exist on the other days, and doesn't see us on the other days. Of course not. And the society doesn't need to be beautiful only on Sunday, but on every day of the week. So in this sense, for example, if you sorry, if you look at the past, even at home every day, and even poor families always dressed decently and in a nice way for every day. Because I can remember my grandpa. Okay, I didn't know him, and I didn't meet him for a long time because then he died. But I can remember, well, my dad told me that he was dressing, and he was not Catholic, because it's not a matter of only a Catholicism, it's a matter just of society and Western society and culture. And he was dressing every day at home with tie and eventually vest. So what does it mean? That it's a matter not of just dressing, it's a matter of human dignity. And so and it's not a matter of money too, because you can be poor, you can just have one shirt and one suit and one pair of shoes, but it's always a matter of principles. So I can be poor, but I have the same principles that a noble guy has. So it's just this is fundamental. So it's absolutely a priority that we take it seriously, not just for on Sunday, because we are going to mass to something which is more important than the other days, but just in every moment of our lives, and even at home. Like before, at home, it was absolutely the rule at home. So now we have the modern concept that at home we can just put I don't know, sport clothes and or whatever is very comfortable, but it's also it's something that belongs to the modernity. It was not.
And also, like, when you every day, in my opinion, for example, and it was like in the former times too, that when you were like dressed formal and nice every day, then the difference to the Sunday has not to be that much like today.
Yes.
Because when we, for example, walked during the week, just wear during week just t-shirt and jeans, then for sure when you just wear a dress shirt and a nice pants and a tie, then the difference is big. And now we think every time the difference has to be big. Now, in former times it was not that big. It just was like a little bit more, not much, just a little bit.
And it's really interesting too, because I think you would all agree on this as well, that the way we dress doesn't affect just the people around us, but it affects us psychologically as well.
Yeah.
That when you're dressed well, and this is really true. I'm the only married one here. By the way, all these single guys here, any ladies out there watching, go ahead and send me an email. I'll hook you up with these guys. Anyway, I come home, but it's a really interesting thing when you're married, because you do so easily get into the idea, I come home, I'm going to be comfortable. It makes sense, and I do it honestly, but when the rare occasions when I do dress nicer when I'm home, I do feel better about it, because I do feel that I'm giving the respect to my wife and the respect to myself that I should be, because dressing like a schlub when I'm at home, it's not great. It's an unfortunate thing, and it is a bad habit, and it's something we should get out of. And I think I have a question from Stanislas from France. He says, what do you think about people like Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses that are always dressed with suits?
Yes,
I mean, good for them.
Good for them.
Yeah. So it just in questions of fashion, they do it well.
I mean,
so except the circumstance that
they dress nicely, but then the rest is a disaster. So
exactly, like the worst criminals also wear a suit and tie, right?
Right.
Yes,
exactly.
So you can't see it from the outside, really.
Yeah, I think that's a dangerous thing. That's a dangerous ideology of when we think we have to be against those who are the different ideology than us and everything. And that's so political that I think you think, and I'm not saying you, Stanislas, I'm just saying in general, that you think, okay, I'm right wing or I'm conservative or whatever. And so you think whatever the left wing or what the people on the left believe, it must be wrong. All of it. It must all be wrong. The Jehovah's Witnesses must be wrong. Everything they do. Of course not. Of course they do some things good. I mean, for goodness sake, look at the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons who go to the train station and pass out flyers and talk to people about faith. Is that bad? That's not bad. Good for them. They're out there trying to spread the faith about Christ. Do we do that? Do we go to the train station and try to bring people to God? No, we don't. That's not their fault. That's our fault, for goodness sake. And same with how they dress.
Not exactly
the faith.
The way
of course,
you
the faith is loony. I mean, gee, look into those two religions, and they're insane. But some of their outward reactions are absolutely great. I wish we were more times, honestly.
Yes, in that case, I would say maybe
case,
it can be good, but it's not the Catholic way of getting more believers, because
it's a different question.
Yeah, no,
I think
it's
about kind of a different topic, right?
Right. And down the rabbit hole we go.
No, but we're speaking about people who just go to the train station.
You're right. I brought it up. No, you're right. I mean, typically we have, I mean, it's through priests and the way we act, but actually comes great back to the way, to our topic, that the way we spread the faith is through how we act and how we behave and how we present ourselves.
Yes.
That's it. Our way of presenting ourselves is how we spread the faith.
And another fact, just for daily life, which maybe makes the idea to wear in future more formal clothes is, for example, the fact that so I about my experience, I can say it's true, that when you were wearing formal clothes, then even when you have discussions, for example, with modernists or with left or libertarians or something, left-wing people, then
Or conservatives.
or yeah, then when you just wear formal clothes, then they know, okay, you are a conservative, a right-wing guy, and then they want that you argue like a conservative, and then you have no chance to say, okay, no, I have no opinion about that also, because they want it, because they see, okay, you are different. And so it makes, in my case, it makes for me much more easier to say open among modern people my opinions about society, about the truth, about religion, about everything, because they would be don't believe me when I say, okay, it doesn't matter for me because I don't look like that.
Right. And so obviously, I mean, like, as you say, I mean, and if you have a really low standard, if you go to the grocery store in sweats and a t-shirt, which I know people in America definitely do, I did myself, and you get into a conversation with someone about faith or politics or anything, they're going to have a hard time, giving you much of, they're not going to think that much of you, right? They're gonna, oh, okay, this guy's dressed like a little punk, or dressed like a little kid, like Johnny said. You dress like a kid. Why am I going to trust your opinions? I mean, of course I'm not. So you do have to have that standard, and I think that where that standard is it is questionable. But I do think, and I agree with Christian and Paulo in this, is that I do think all of us, me especially, we have to raise our standards. We have to raise our standards and say we have to do better. We have to do better. We have to go out and actively right now, tomorrow, all of the guys watching this podcast, go out tomorrow and buy a suit coat. Go do something. Go get a vest or a tie and a shirt and whatever, and wear it. And I guarantee you, and I think we all would guarantee you, you're going to feel better about yourself, and you're going to feel like you are changing something. And since we know that, why would we do something else? And I've got to tell myself this too. I'm going to have Christian's going to come visit us, and he's going to come visit us and go skiing or something, and then we're going to go buy some clothes because I do need some help. But it's a really good question, because I think, again, Johnny would agree with this too. You do need, you may need someone to help, if it's your sister, your wife, some guy who just has a better idea of it because he's done it already. I mean, I think that's a really good idea.
As Christian said, if you don't have any person to ask, then go on YouTube. There's plenty of advice there.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I think that if anyone, truly, guys, and I really mean this, if you have questions about what you should wear, what you should dress in, send me an email, or maybe these guys will let me share their emails too, because I think they would be willing to help, answer some questions about, basic things that you can wear, things that go together, things that sound really stupid and simple, because again, I'm an idiot when it comes to this stuff. And so I do need, can I wear, guys, can I wear pink socks with a green vest? These types
Talking
of things
about socks, right?
I can do that.
Christian would do it. Exactly. And I guess so. So watch out who you get advice from.
It's a big mysterium of this guy. Socks.
Yeah, exactly. It's socks.
Found your weak point.
Exactly. Yeah. Christian shows his wacky side with his socks. But no, guys, I mean, I really appreciate the conversation. I think it's really a fascinating one and an important one, because I think it is.
Yes.
It is something that we have to stay away from the world. We are in the world, but not of the world, as Johnny said. And that means we have to be better than the world. We have to be better than modern society. And we have to aim to be the standard in everything we do, the way we talk, the way we act, the way we dress. And I think that that is the goal that we all want to tell everyone who's watched this podcast. And again, please, anyone who's watched this, send me an email, kevin89davis@gmail.com. I'm not going to give you fashion advice, but I will forward your questions to one of these three guys who all are very, very good. Johnny too. Again, Johnny's been kind of the counter to this argument, but Johnny dresses very well. Johnny will dress in suit coats and stuff too, and looks just has a different standard in terms of daily fashion, which I think it's interesting. It's a good conversation. I've appreciated having all of you guys on, and we should do it again sometime. We'll talk about. Well, we'll find some other topic to talk about. Maybe fashion again. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, fashion is.
And I think we're going to have one on. I hope that my wife or my sister or someone is going to do one about women's fashion. I'm not going to talk about women's fashion. That's a topic that I'm going to leave off myself. But I do hope that my wife Ina will do it. I think she has a very, very good way of dressing, and I think that it's obviously as important as men's fashion, and not just in terms of modesty. It's as important as our fashion in terms of how you look, how you present yourself to the public. And it matters. It really matters. And it matters how it fits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to save that for the ladies to talk about in a future episode. So guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
until next time.
Ad Majoram.
Hey, Gloria.